All right, we're talking about the Flash. Guys, real quickly before we get into it, I'm going to give you a quick rundown of the history of this movie.
Love it.
Ooh, boy.
All right, first announced in 2014 when they did like a whole like, hey, here's the DC Extended Universe, guys, after Batman v Superman. Here you go.
Cyborg.
At that point, the film was supposed to be released in 2016, just before Justice League. That obviously didn't happen. But as Ryan said, yeah, a Cyborg movie and a Green Lantern Corps movie were part of those. Outside of those two, all those films eventually got made. So, there you go. Oh, Justice League Part 2 didn't get made. Never mind. Phil Lord and Chris Miller wrote the first draft of that film before deciding to go write solo, which we know how that worked out in 2015. Seth Grahame-Smith was attached to write and direct based on the treatment that Phil Lord and Chris Miller wrote. That was going to be his directorial debut. He, however, by the way, he wrote Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter and the Lego Movie.
Yeah.
He left in 2016 due to creative differences. Rick Famuyiwa then came on board in 2016, and he was going to use Smith's script. That's when Kiersey Clemens and Billy Crudup came on board as Iris and Henry. That didn't work out actually after a while. And then 2017, Joby Harold came on board to write what he story credited for this current adaptation. 2018, John Francis Daly and Jonathan Goldstein were set to direct. 2019, Ezra Miller and Grant Morrison were writing a new script. Miller was threatening to leave the project if Warner Brothers didn't take that script. He was not happy with the lighthearted direction that Warner Brothers wanted to go down.
They,
thank you. Grant Morrison.
It's going to come up a lot, so just try and get that in your heads.
Man, I'm just trying to think of a Grant, like...
They're both theys, by the way, Grant and Ezra.
Like what that movie, a Grant Morrison script would have
been.
Yeah. So obviously they didn't take that script and begged Ezra Miller to stay on board. That's when Daly and Goldstein left the project because they didn't like the Ezra Miller script that was happening. Then Warner Brothers scrapped it anyway. And then finally, Christina Hodgson and Andy Muschietti came on board in 2019, and they've been on board until now. And here we go. So,
real quick,
directed, yes.
Because of everything happening with Solo and The Flash, because of those nonsense, we can thank those movies for having Across the Spider-Verse and Into the Spider-Verse happen, because that's where Lord Miller went to do, because both those movies failed. So we count our blessings.
Yeah.
And the studio is just like, oh God.
Yeah.
So directed by Andy Muschietti, written by Christina Hodgson, who, as I mentioned many times, wrote Birds of Prey, Bumblebee, and Batgirl, the scrapped Batgirl movie. Joby Harold is credited as story credit. He did Transformers Rise of the Beast from last week. So, full spoilers if you have not seen the film.
Also, the John Francis Daly and Goldstein guy, that's the guys who made Dungeons and Dragons. So because they didn't do Flash, they made Dungeons and Dragons. So
oh man, we're in a good timeline.
We're in the better timeline, guys.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. You're in the better spaghetti.
Dungeons and Dragons compared to
I mean,
Flash?
like, I'm glad that movie's here.
Compared to The Flash?
Well, but here's the thing. Would they have not done it necessarily because The Flash would have come out sooner?
Maybe. I'm just going off what the.
I'm happy with what we got. I'm happy with what we got.
I'm just going off because that movie came out.
All right, so full spoilers. You have been warned. If you have not seen the film yet, go pause this or keep watching it. I really don't care. But you've been warned. So let's get right into it. What did we think, Ben?
It was all right.
Cool. Sparkz. You didn't say mid.
Yeah, you.
No, man. Honestly, I actually kind of liked this. I enjoyed it. It's not the best. It's not the worst. It's definitely not mid.
You just cost us 10,000 views.
All right, fine. I'll say it. It was mid.
Sparkz, what'd you think? Deep breath.
I think it has a lot of good moments, a lot of high highs, and some really low lows. And I think its Achilles heel is that none of the important things, the like core important things it needed to do, are in the good category.
Ryan.
I liked it. I think there's a lot, just like he said, there's a lot of great stuff. In fact, like halfway through the movie, I'm like, am I really gonna like this movie? And then the final act happens, and then that kind of like sours a little bit for me. But like, I went in like hoping for the best, and like I came out with like a pretty fun, like, you know, there are worse Flash movies in the world than this one, and the last act is I feel like a completely separate movie compared to like the two Flash movies we were getting first. I liked it. I'm glad I saw the Flash.
I thought I fall more on Sparks's angle here because I think the first act I'm kind of like, oh, this is kind of fun. I'm into this, whatever, sure, yeah. And then I'm not interested anymore. And there's moments where I become more interested, but most of the time the movie just kind of falls flat for me. I won't say it's a bad movie. As Stephen King, Ben's best friend, said, it is not the best superhero movie ever. As David Zaslav, Tom Cruise, James Gunn, Stephen King all have said, it's the best superhero movie. It is not. It is quite honestly a perfectly fine mid-level superhero movie that has a lot of problems. And I think that I frankly don't know what they were watching. But that's neither here nor there.
You know what they were watching? They were watching their bank accounts.
Well, I don't know why, because this movie's not making any money.
That's what they were trying to fix. That is really funny. That movie's not even like, it's doing worse than even I thought it was going to do, which is really interesting.
Yeah, I will say, I think that it's impossible for me on just having one viewing for that perception to not have been somewhat colored by the overhype machine. Not that I ever bought into it. I never believed that they were accurate with the way they were marketing the hype, but it still affected me going into the film that they were trying to push that narrative. And I'm like, come on, y'all. Why are you lying to me?
Sure.
Don't lie to me.
I get it.
Why are you lying?
I knew it wasn't going to be that. So I was like, I'm just going to go in and watch a movie. So
I'll talk about one thing that I don't think works very well in the movie. And honestly, I think it's the two Barrys. I don't think Ezra Miller works off of himself very well. I think Ezra Miller works off of Michael Keaton well. So his scenes as the older Barry talking to Michael Keaton, I actually quite like. I never found a moment where the younger Barry worked for me on... It's to say that means to say that I don't like it. It's just kind of there. Like he's just a non-issue to the plot that I don't really see the point of having that second Barry. And I also don't know why older Barry had to lose his speed. We cut that entire second Barry, and the movie's really just the same, except maybe Dark Flash doesn't happen. But I think you can still make that work.
I hear you. I am more positive on secondary, and when I learned that there were going to be two Ezra Millers, I was like, that's a choice for this movie. But this is definitely just like it either works for you or doesn't. And for most of the time, it did. Like I would say, like 7 out of 10 jokes worked for me. I having older Barry now being mature, seeing the person he used to be, and like being an 18-year-old is awful, and like 18-year-olds are awful.
Well, but it's not even like the person he used to be. It's a person he never got to be.
It's true. Yeah. It's a person he never got to be because like he was like catered to by his mom his entire life.
Which I say that, and I think the movie has that there, but I don't think they go for that enough.
Sure. Yeah.
To justify the separation between the two as characters.
Sure.
And that's part of the problem. I think it's partially a problem in script and partially a problem in performance. One of my biggest issues with it is that Ezra Miller completely drops, I feel, their awkwardness in the performance of Barry once there is a younger Barry. Mm-hmm. Now they are suddenly far more focused, far more straight-lined.
Yeah.
Like they have to be this, frankly, kind of blander, more mature version by comparison to the younger one, to a degree where I'm like, I don't recognize the character I was watching in the first 15 minutes of the film in your performance anymore. Like you have now transitioned into like, all of a sudden your quirks aren't here. These quirks that we haven't spent enough time with this character, which is also a problem with this film. But like between Justice League and this, all of a sudden, a lot of those mannerisms slipped away. I'm not saying I won't say they're 100% gone through the rest of the film, but they are very much reduced.
I'll tell you what, I agree with you. And that's not a bad thing. Because I don't like Justice League and BVS Flash, and I like this Flash. So if he is a little less annoying, a little less ticky, I think that's fine. Because I still think like him, like I think the calorie thing is like such a great idea to like show you like that dude, because he always was eating in those other performances too. Like to have him like he does have to constantly eating. It is something he has to think about. Like it is like his energy meter. I think that's a fun new addition. I hear you, but I don't view that as a problem personally.
As because you brought up the eating thing, I don't disagree that I like the idea that he always has to eat. It's not something new to Flash. John Wesley Shipp's Barry Allen had to do it all the time. I don't like how it's filmed. I find it aggressive as it's filmed, because every single time we get like an eating moment, it's like a hard zoom in with like excessive mouth noises, and I'm personally, as an aesthetic choice, I'm not here for it. I get that it could work for other people, but it doesn't work for me.
Yeah, I do think this movie has a huge tonal problem, but like when it works the best in the first act. Like I wish the entire movie was as wacky as the first act was. I really do. I wish this could have just been a half the budget, silly slapstick. Like this is basically half like a Looney Tunes movie at times, especially with the baby stuff. And I thought that was great. I love it. I wanted more of that stuff, but then like we got to go into the dark stuff, which is fine.
Well, that's why I said like I like the first act. I'm actually really enjoying it in the first act. And on Sparks' point about Miller's performance, I think Miller. I don't think maybe they're not. I haven't seen much of their performances. I've seen Perks of Being a Wallflower and the Fantastic Beasts films and his Barry Allen. I haven't seen a lot of them. I don't buy his comedic performance, which is probably why younger Barry doesn't work for me, because he's primarily all comedy. Whereas older Barry is mostly emotion, and I find those scenes work for me far more because I think Ezra Miller is good at that performance.
So one of the movies that I have seen them in is We Need to Talk About Kevin. It's one of his earliest performances. I think it was when they were a teenager, and it's in that movie they are like a young serial killer, and it is a very intense performance, and they are a very intense actor who is doing more comedy in these roles. So like I think they're much better at being a dramaturgy, if you will. That's why
I like Perks Being a Wallflower. I think they're very good in that movie.
Yeah.
Sparks?
Just going back to what I was saying with that is that I don't dislike Miller's performance as the older Barry. That's not what I was trying to convey. What I don't like is the fact that I find the character inconsistent. Yeah. That I don't see that character as the same. Like, regardless of the fact that I find the performance in the dramatic parts of the middle and most of the rest of the chunk of the film more palatable, doesn't change the fact that all of a sudden I feel like we're with a different Barry.
Sure.
Or that when we get to the very end of the film, all of a sudden we've whiplashed back to the Barry that we had at the beginning of the movie, in terms of that mannerisms and performance thing. And it's that inconsistency that bothers me more than anything. Yes, it is I think a better direction for what Miller's capable of, because I agree. I don't think Miller's strength is in the comedic stuff. Mm-hmm. But it still is like, that doesn't jive. This character doesn't stay the same.
That's fair. For me, what works for me about it is it's not just like, oh, I need to like save this girl. Like it's like I gotta save like the world. Like I like the threat of the threat of the universe is at stake. So he does need to like put his suit up, and he does need to like hunker down. Because it's like the guy, like there is another version of him with the same powers, and like that could destroy reality as it almost does at the end. So like for me, I am cool with him maturing up in the face of obliteration for the universe. Mm-hmm. Stuff. So like, you know, and again, also like it might be, you know, I just like, it is not consistent, but I just think I have more fun with him being like this. So like, hey, at the end of the world, you got to mature a little bit.
Mm-hmm. No, I mean, that's fair. Like I just, his performance as Barry Allen has also never worked for me. And I don't think that, I think I agree with Sparks, but I also agree with Ryan. Like, I do prefer this more. I agree when Sparks said this. I do prefer this direction for Barry Allen. It's just inconsistent. But I also don't really care for Miller as Barry Allen in the first place. Like, I don't think even in this film they ever really come to it. You know.
Yeah.
I'm gonna put a very fine point on it because I do want to move to other things. I think what I hit the wall with is that it makes all of Barry's mannerisms in the beginning of the film and the very end of the film, the things that they do in their main universe, it makes all of those things feel like they're an act or a performance, that they are, in fact, like comedy bits for the character instead of mental health quirks, which is something Miller talked about being part of how they baked into Barry Allen when they were making the Justice League character. Mm-hmm. And the fact that it has gone completely absent when we go into this direction of the film, regardless of the fact that it's supposed to be this more mature role, the fact that the stammering is toned completely away, almost gone, and all that kind of stuff makes it feel like we're no longer thinking about, is this a part of who the person is?
That's right.
And I think that's part of my problem with it.
Well, that's a really valid, awesome thing. Yeah.
Ben, want to jump in here?
Actually,
Well, you don't have to talk about
liked-
Ezra Miller. You can move to something else. If
Anything.
you
I just want you to talk.
No, I was gonna say I actually liked the performance that they played off themselves. To be perfectly honest, I thought seeing the two complete total opposites that worked for me, because you have a Barry Allen who grew up with thinking where the world thought his dad killed his mom, where he worked, or where Barry worked super hard and he had to work and got struck by lightning, got his powers, became a superhero, and then you have a more laid back, childish version of that who, in older Barry's eyes, is the luckiest kid in the world because this Barry got to live with his mom. He didn't. So I actually kind of liked how when older Barry realized that, oh shit, I am in a certain point in time where I should not be. You can tell that he like instantly had to go into crisis mode, and he went to, I need to figure this out. And then he went to younger Barry's. Like, it was kind of like, what's a good analogy for this? Oh, damn, I don't have one. But not Back to the Future. But I will say
Eric
this
Stoltz.
it did work for me in a way.
Yeah, I feel you.
What was the thigh to the future? No, Eric. What was the guy at thigh? He had Eric Stoltz tattooed on his thigh.
Oh yeah. He had Thigh to the Future.
I think it's Thigh to the Future.
That whole little section I thought was really funny. Because it's just like the parallel worlds of like Kevin Bacon is in this movie and this movie and this movie.
And I like that. I like that kind of thing. Well, I want to talk about so for me, a lot of the stuff before we get to when we enter the Speed Force and change the thing, and we're in 2013. Up to Michael Keaton, I'm kind of not in the movie anymore. I find that stuff to be a little boring. But when we get to Michael Keaton, I really like Michael Keaton. Like, I think he's delivering a really good performance. I think he's having a good time. I like his scenes with Ezra Miller. I think they're good, and I think they're well written, and I think they both play off each other very well. Yeah. Specifically, the older Barry and Michael Keaton. I like that stuff a lot. Even his action sequence, I find is kind of fun.
The smartest thing they did was not try to have Michael Keaton do any action, and it looked awful. They just got a stunt guy to fight the two Barrys, like when we first meet him. So it's not like the most awkward choreographed thing ever. I'm like, we know he's like 75 years old. You don't have to like make him fight. It's fine. It's a movie.
And I like the Michael Keaton stuff specifically. His fight sequence. I mean, look, he doesn't move like Batman 89, and we all knew that was going to be the case. But like, that's a really cool, just a Batman action sequence where he's fighting and he's using his cape and he's using his batarangs. And I like that he's using his big, bulky batarangs from the Tim Burton film, like they're the thinner batarangs. He's just throwing them around. I like that. I could have done without the throwing up, but the Ezra Miller throwing up bit in the middle of that. But I like that stuff, and I think Keaton is fun in this.
Yeah, I think. Honestly, one of the standouts of the Flash is both Batman. I love both. I think both Batman are good in this movie. Honestly, y'all, it is the trajectory of Ben Affleck in like the Snyderverse and the DCU is so weird, because like when he's first announced, like it's cool, then BVS comes out and I don't think the movie's good, so I don't really think about Ben Affleck as Batman. But then like I reevaluate not so much the movie but him as Batman, and I love him. And then in Zack Snyder's Justice League, he's awesome. He actually has an arc, unlike the Justice League movie. And in this, that's like, dude, that's Batman, and he's not doesn't have like a robot voice. He's doing a Batman voice.
I love that. I love that.
It took us this long to get a Batman voice. I'm like, and you're gone, and now you're gone. You're so good. I love you, Batfleck.
I really love his action sequence. Yeah,
it's awesome.
Yeah.
He gives a great speech to. Sorry, someone go ahead. Sorry.
Sparkz, you were gonna say something?
No, I was just agreeing.
Oh, well, the thing I really like about, the thing that honestly gets me a little bit interested in Andy Muschietti doing a Batman Brave and the Bold film is the fact that we see Batman using gadgets like we see him in the comics. You know, like things should not be realistic when you're talking about Batman. Like the fact that he's skating on the road and then jumps over a car, his bike has like this grappling hook that just magically turns sideways, and like, yeah, that's Batman. That's Batman technology. That's Batman shit. I'm into that. That's one of the reasons why I like Ben Affleck as Batman, also because he does that stuff in Batman v Superman and Justice League. I really like that, and we also get that with Keaton. So like the fact that we've all accepted that live action Batman doesn't have to be restricted to what a real human being can do is really exciting to me for the future of Batman.
That is a good point. I do think Muschietti's like Batman stuff is pretty solid. The Flash stuff, you know, I think there's some really good stuff and some really bad stuff. And unfortunately, with a character like the Flash, it's all CG. And honestly, like it kind of like washed over me after a while, and it stopped bothering me until the end again. But like this whole movie's ugly. The whole movie's kind of ugly, and like
It's an ugly suit.
and it's an awful suit, absolutely. But like, this is such an expensive movie that's taken so long to come out. I'm honestly shocked that it looks this bad. And I don't have a problem with CG, but like the entire movie is ugly.
Ben, I will not lie; those CGI babies were horrible to look at.
They looked rough.
Yeah, I was laughing my ass off.
I was like, these. I mean, look, I get that they're not real children, that they're falling to their.
You can't actually
doom.
drop a bunch of children. Yeah,
no,
exactly.
Obviously not. But at the same time, it's like I've seen so much better CG elsewhere, and like this looks.
That part specifically didn't bother me. It's other specific moments when like, why are we doing CG here for no reason?
So one of the things that bothers me about Barry Allen. Speed, how they portray speed in this film specifically. Now, I haven't seen Zack Snyder's Justice League, but this was not a problem in the Justice League version. One of the things that that is kind of a pet peeve for me when you do speed is that it feels like the ground is moving, but the person isn't, and that happens sometimes in the CW stuff. But they're kind of running so fast you kind of miss it. Mm-hmm. But we see such long strides with Barry where he's stepping on the ground, but the ground is moving under his feet, so we don't really get any footfalls for him. And it's not a criticism of the film; it's a stylistic choice, I'm sure, but it's a pet peeve of mine that I just don't prefer when you're doing speed in films. That's why I kind of posted on Twitter that Mari and Eternals is, I think, the perfect use of speed in film at this point, because I think that looks awesome, and you can actually see her stepping and moving in the background. Looks cool. Like that's for me the standard right now.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, Makari is super dope. Zack Snyder's Justice League, it's better than this. As far as I remember, he is stepping on stuff.
And I've seen the
long shots.
I've seen the most cheer moment. I've seen one most cheer moment at the Oscars.
In the movie, that moment's awesome.
Yeah, no, I know, but I've seen what I'm talking about. It's like, to your point, like I've seen that, and that looks better than this.
Absolutely, yeah. It is a weird choice, but like I do wish for like the power stuff was a little more consistent. But again, like this is his first origin movie, or like not origin, but like his first solo movie. So like, I guess you got to like set a foundation for your own movie, I guess, or whatever.
On the note of the CGI, it really becomes a problem for me in certain points. Most specifically is I don't mind for the kaleidoscopic effect of what they're going for, which I actually think is really cool, of how the timeline is affected and you see the ripples.
Yeah.
I don't mind those back rows from second on being CGI and clearly CGI.
Yep.
Don't care. What I have a problem with is when the front things, like Michael Shannon Zod choking out Sasha Cal's Kara.
Yeah.
That they're clearly CGI and we're like focused on them. And I'm like, why? Why are they CGI? They look terrible.
There is
just absolutely awful.
So much unnecessary.
And boy, do I hate when a director comes out and says, well, that was on purpose.
Oh,
boy, howdy.
Log off, sir, please.
No,
that's
thank
how
you.
It looks in the Speed Force, and I'm like, get out of here.
There's a moment like I don't remember, but like like you see either like the mom or the dad, like at the end, and it's just like they look like rubber, like straight rubber, and I'm like, that's a style.
And I think that's kind of a cool. I think the chronosphere is like a cool idea, as Sparkz said, like the kaleidoscope aspect. I think it's kind of neat. I like that Barry is clearly running forward, but you see their legs going backwards, and that I think looks really cool.
Yeah.
So like, there's cool things happening there, but like, it's unfinished. It's clearly unfinished, and the move wasn't. Well, we meant for it to look that way.
Yeah, I really wish he didn't say that because that makes me like it less.
Did the babies mean to look that way, Andy?
Yeah,
the babies?
Again, like, it's just these things that didn't need to be CGI. I don't know why they went for it that way.
Oh,
and, like, it just looks bad.
I remember he said specifically it's because you're viewing it through the eyes of the Flash through the chronosphere, so it's like warping reality like a fisheye lens. No, it's not.
No, you specifically lined up a shot where we're following the other Barry as he's like trying to correct the events in the ripples, and that's where you specifically see like that young Barry in the foreground, then jumping around over here, and around that is Michael Shannon Zod choking out Kara, and they are clearly CGI, and they grab young Barry who turns into CGI. Like,
how much more money?
Look terrible.
How much more money they must have spent on all the last act CGI stuff. I'll forgive the first two acts. Like, you're setting, like, again, like, this is what it looks like, but like, man, that final act, it's so much rubber.
It's rough. Yeah. I don't think I get that Michael Shannon did this for a toilet or a bathroom. He was like, I need a new bathroom, I'm gonna do this. But and like, I don't care about his performance. Is, you know what, it's solid, it's there.
I think it's fine. Like, it's
he's there.
Like, you could have told me that was archive footage and I'd believe you.
Yeah, but like, he doesn't add anything to the movie, like, at all.
It's Christina Hodsons coming on to write the final version of this script when it's been passed down for a decade. I'm so curious when the Man of Steel stuff came in, because it could not have been from the beginning. Right. I firmly believe 6 years ago, when that was still a technically new movie, like, that was like.
And I don't believe Christina Hodgson wrote the final draft of this movie, honestly, especially that last act. I think that last act, they've been working on that. We've been hearing about them doing reshoots for years. 100%. Who's writing those reshoots?
I feel like there's a lot of Hodgson and the emotionality between, like, Barry and the parents.
Absolutely.
And like around Barry and the parents stuff.
Yeah.
And then honestly, even like the stuff between the two Barrys and interacting with Michael Keaton, I'm like, I don't feel that anymore. I don't feel that writing here anymore.
I think
there's a lot of mindlessness there.
There's definitely, once the last act hits, it's just like she's off that script. That is studio producer, studio heads all over that final act.
And like, even I'll admit, like I've said, I still like the Michael Keaton moments with Barry, and especially like the was like, why do you want to stay here? Because it's the one where my mom dies. Where my mom lives. Like, I think that's a good moment. And Michael Keaton, I actually really like Michael Keaton when he's just plain clothes Bruce Wayne more than I like him as Batman. I don't really have an end point to that, so I'll just let Sparkz go.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, if you have something to that.
Oh, this is Michael Keaton. Like, I really like I didn't expect him or Supergirl to die in this movie, but I do actually like that it is a like inevitability of this universe. And like, I do like, and we'll talk about the end, but like, I do like where that road goes. How it's executed is different, but like the way Michael Keaton finally goes out, and it's like, I wanted to save you, and it's like, you did save me. Like, you brought me out of the cave. Like, I didn't want to die being an old man. I wanted to die being Batman. And I think, like, he didn't say that, but he says enough in his eyes. Right?
Okay, I'm changing my point that I was going to say, but like, I like that idea too. But what doesn't work for me about Michael Keaton's Bruce Wayne is that, like, I don't think there's enough there. There's not enough meat on the bones for this idea of like, I was unwilling to put on the cape and cowl again. Like, the idea of like, Gotham is fine now, so I haven't had to be Batman for a while. I have zero problem with that. But the idea of like, the Earth is under threat and I could use your help because like, you're familiar and you know things. Nah, pass. I don't care. I'm like, but why? Where is that coming from? And it just feels like a forced thing to literally go through the motions of getting to the point of Barry being like, I literally know you're listening and waiting for the moment where you're going to decide to jump back in on this. And there's just nothing there. There's nothing. And like, it's weird that the movie doesn't even try to dig into the idea. Is this Tim Burton's Batman? There, like, regardless of if it is or not, there's nothing that's like played to like feed on the idea of his history in this world for why he would make the decision to not immediately help Barry.
Sure.
There's nothing there. Like, I get the intention of the old superhero who doesn't want to get involved for XYZ reason.
Yeah.
We are not given XYZ reason.
I'm not going to disagree with that. I don't
agree with that either. I also, sorry, Ryan, real quickly. Because we're talking about because we've already brought up his death, like, that doesn't work for me on an emotional level. I agree with Ryan that I think it's a good idea, the way of like how it's kind of portrayed of like, oh, you got me out of the cave. But the way it's executed is so sloppy that I found his death to just kind of be nothing to me. And that really sucks because I feel like I should have felt something there.
It is really funny that like the way that the Batman goes out is just like in the middle of a desert. Like, it is one of those things where like,
killed by a Kryptonian who didn't even die.
So the other point I was going to make before that was I don't have a problem with like in my opinion, time travel movies. Like, you just kind of accept what it is and you go forward with it. and you shouldn't be thinking about it for too long. But the exception is when the time travel movie explains how time travel works in the movie, and that becomes a functionality of it. And I think it was a mistake to have the scene where Keaton's Bruce is explaining to Barry through spaghetti, this is what you did, this is how you wrecked time, and here's where you create a branch. Because I'm like, you just explained a time travel rule that technically says younger Barry and the Savitar situation should not happen because there is no causal loop that he would be living in. You just said that it reverberates and creates this alternate in both directions timeline, which means that they can't paradox inside of it. So the fact that they like explain it that way, but specifically undo it with the Savitar thing, drove me a little nuts. Where I'm like, you could have just said like, you've created a multiverse alternate like bullshit, and just said like, well, now it's different because you changed things, and like not get too specific, because once you got too specific, you explained away the crux of the point of your bad guy.
Yeah, I think the failing of a lot of time travel movies is to try and explain the time travel logic of that particular movie. And I'm always of the case like, as long as you're if you do that and you are true to that by the end of the film, I'm happy. And I don't necessarily think the Flash is. I think Avengers Endgame probably stepped in it when they tried to explain what their time travel plotline was doing it. Someone brought up really well that Looper is probably the best example of this, because they don't. They're just like, if we're gonna do this, we're gonna be here all night. We're gonna have a headache. Let's just shut up and just drink our coffee.
Right.
I prefer that when you're talking about time travel. Like, you know what? No one knows.
Tenet
well,
also
and especially
is like that. Yeah.
Well, and especially
Tenet,
like us being as versed in this stuff as we are, I've listened to enough opinions of people who are not talking about this stuff and saying like, I'm exhausted with explaining the multiverse. Like, the multiverse to a layman's audience just means this is why there is a different person playing this character.
Yep.
And that's it. And leave it at that.
Yep.
Don't get over explanatory. They don't care. And it just actually makes them actively mad. Apparently. So like, cause people are literally being like, I'm sick of the multiverse already because of these kinds of things. And I'm like, just leave it at things are different because you're in a different universe, and that's the end.
Yeah.
And like, I think the comic Flashpoint does it really well. I like the idea of, so in the comic it's explained that the reason why everything has changed is because of what Thawne calls a time boom, like a sonic boom, but for time, where because Barry changed that thing and the way he did it, it created a time boom that reverberated throughout time, which changed more things. And I'm like, honestly, that's all you need in this movie. You changed this thing, it broke the universe, it changed a lot of things.
Man, Brandon, and again, Dr. Andy Muschietti, MD himself, just won't stop talking, because like I'm sure you saw that him like, oh, who actually killed Nora Allen?
Oh
my god!
Because then Andy, when you start talking about that shit, you totally just destroy the entire movie you just made. The movie you're promoting right now. And it's like, oh, but what if actually it wasn't random? Like, Andy, come on,
because you can't
you
just
didn't even set it up in the movie.
You can't just say that Eobard Thawne decided not to kill his mom at all, let alone that day, because the dad didn't go get tomatoes. Like, you can't. That doesn't work. They turned it into some random burglar broke in, which weak ass shit. And that's what it became. And then that's how it all worked. You cannot retroactively, after you've made the movie where Flashpoint happened and it was supposed to be Eobard Thawne killing the mom and not have involved it at all, and then make another movie later and say, but actually it was Eobard Thawne. It doesn't work like that.
Yeah.
Those things don't connect. He would have to be involved in this story. And I would have been totally, even if we never get another Flash movie, or we do or not, whatever, like I would have been happy with like, oh, they are setting up a reverse Flash. Like, oh, we see at the end, oh, we saw like a red lightning streak in the house. Like, well, what does it mean? Like, that would be fun speculation. But there's none of that in the movie whatsoever. And his dad gets off. Like, it is a random guy who kills his mom. But after the movie came out, is it actually? I'm like...
And, like, I don't even know why we're doing that, because, like, I'm sorry, but the ending of this film disqualified you for sequel. Like, just 100% does. Because there's no way that the actor who shows up at the end of this movie is our Batman going forward.
I mean, do we know?
But do we know?
There is no way he's doing it.
But I can't. Here's the thing. We can just talk about it, because like we're talking about spoilers. Like,
they're not doing an older Batman again. They're just not going to do that.
Here's the
It
thing.
would be weird, like you had all this Michael Keaton stuff set up, and you said no, different old Batman.
Well, here's the thing. So we know this now, and like this has been like that was going to be Michael Keaton. There was an ending with Michael Keaton, and then this was reshot relatively recently. This George Clooney thing. I think this is just for fun. I don't think this is as much as I would love for it to be like a Flash setup. You know, like oh George. I think this is just a fun multiverse. Like it's Batman and Robin guy. What? I think it's just for goofs.
But so here's because Ryan said so there are 3 different endings to this film that they filmed 3 that we know of, but honestly I think there actually might be more. George Clooney shows up at the end of this movie, which is an unhinged decision on everyone's part.
I giggled so good.
That was actually the biggest laugh of my entire theater when I saw it earlier today.
My entire theater was confused. My partner was confused. She never saw Batman and Robin. That's on me, but still.
I love it.
The first ending had Keaton. The first ending that we know about has Keaton and Kale at the courthouse. So it's both of them at the courthouse. The second ending had Supergirl, Superman, Cavill's Superman, Wonder Woman, Godot's Wonder Woman, and Keaton's Batman at the courthouse. And then the third one, which is this one, had George Clooney at the courthouse. And frankly, I don't care how stupid it is. You picked the wrong one.
Yeah, I mean, we've said it on every DC thing. Like, obviously, Henry Cavill should be here, Superman and stuff. Like, I thought this was hilarious.
And I'm with you. It is objectively very funny. But the thing is, like, if you're doing that, if you're going to, because they've been wishy-washy. Look, they've been wishy-washy. We all know Ezra Miller's not coming back as Barry Allen. We're not seeing a sequel to this movie. They're just not going to do it in whatever future of the DC films.
With this box office.
But Ezra Miller's the only person who could possibly play Barry Allen, according to the director.
Good thing Wally West is going up soon.
Good thing Grant Gustin didn't do it for 10 years.
And so, like, you have this. But because of that, if you're gonna pretend that this movie could possibly, the ending of this movie could set up the next universe, George Clooney's not Batman in that universe. Like, it's just not going to happen. And honestly, because you didn't choose the Keaton and Kale, just the first ending of just Keaton and Kale, this ending is 1,000% more depressing than it has to be, because this Supergirl's destiny is just to die.
Yep.
And never come back. Excuse me.
Yeah, it's a bummer. Yeah, so that is
awful.
Yeah.
It sucks because this is the part that I'm actively mad about the movie. Just notice my tone, is that Supergirl is criminally underutilized in this film.
Yeah,
criminally so.
I agree.
I 100% agree with that. She is one of my favorite parts of it. I don't know how many other characters I need to be more involved in my Flash movie. I probably would have preferred more of her than Michael Keaton, despite me really liking Michael Keaton. I think she just has a really strong presence and energy, but like, I don't know if I needed more of her in the Flash.
I think we needed more of her because we've never had her before. That's the thing. Mm-hmm. And like, honestly, like, I think a big problem with this movie, what it's trying to do with multiverse stuff, is that I think people have been making a lot of really strong comparisons between this and No Way Home, of like, why did No Way Home work where this didn't?
Yeah.
And the reason is because when we're bringing these properties together, we're bringing together history. We're bringing together like a connection to these characters. And this is why I think it's a problem that Keaton's Batman makes no direct references to the Tim Burton films. That it doesn't. I don't need like fan servicey things, but to know that history is what's being carried over. My connection to that character is part of what's inherent to this.
Sure.
And I think it's a problem that like you're going for this movie. We've talked about it before, but it is a problem that there wasn't a Flash movie before this. I think there simply needed to be a film that was about Miller being the Flash that wasn't a multiversal adventure for this movie to work.
Yeah.
I think that this movie fundamentally is kind of cut off at the knee from the start, because it's doing a multiversal adventure as Flash's first outing. And I think that's a mistake.
100%.
I think that's just a mistake.
Yeah. I think we talked about this when the Flash was first announced, that even doing Flashpoint for the first Flash movie was the biggest mistake they can do. Now, I mean, years later, with all the crap that DC, like the DCEU, has been under, the constant saying, oh, this film's coming out, and then we never hear about it, i.e. Green Lantern Corps. Now with all like the changes of leadership, now that James Gunn is leading DC, it's weird because it is a very I feel like now this movie has put me in my own little paradox, because at first when this first came out, I'm like, no, don't do Flashpoint. And now that we're at the end of the road and James Gunn is about to take the wheel, it's like, yeah, erase the universe, do something different.
And that's the thing of like, if you wanted on that point, Ben, like if you wanted to make this like, okay, yeah, we're going to lock this universe off. It's gone forever. Goodbye. We're starting anew. Then the Keaton and Kale ending works really well because it gives this movie an uplifting ending.
Oh yeah.
Whereas the current one is just not and weird.
Yeah.
Well, and also what I'll say to that is that I think another problem with this film is that you can feel through its different stages of development that it never committed to like what it was wanting to do with the movie.
Yes.
And like either be a story just about Ezra Miller's Flash or be a story about transitioning into the new regime under Gunn and Safran, or be a movie saying goodbye to the DCEU. But be one of those things.
Yeah.
And it didn't commit to any of them. And I think that's also part of the big problem. Because
100%.
like I think there is a very much better version of this movie that doesn't use Keaton, sorry, but and doesn't and maybe uses Cal, but features Henry Cavill and Gal Gadot and Ben Affleck and Jason Momoa and says, see ya.
See, here's the thing. You're like, that's the original, like you could do that with the original Flashpoint. You tell this exact same story that you're doing with Barry and the mom, and you have like the Wonder Woman and Aquaman World War III happening, and you have Ben Affleck. Maybe he's like, oh, I'm the Thomas Wayne version, but it's just Ben Affleck, so you don't have to recast him, so we can still have juicy.
Shit, I mean, even do the Jeffrey Dean Morgan thing.
Absolutely,
that fans wanted.
sure.
Honestly, like if you want to do the Flashpoint stuff, but make the point of it about the fact that we know we're saying goodbye to most of these characters or most of this universe. I told Ryan, like, I would have shit my pants when Zod came out on the ship to talk to Supergirl and she said, what happened to the baby? If moments after that, Cavill had stepped up behind him in the same kind of suit because he'd been converted to believe the same way as Zod. I would have lost my damn mind if that had happened.
Shit. That's cool shit.
And you had to get Momoa and Gadot and Batman all to like help fight Superman and Zod with Supergirl. Holy shit, what a way to close out this DCEU.
The opening scene with Batman and Flash, and then Wonder Woman shows up. That's like the closest we got to ever just a Justice League hanging out moment.
That's a really good beat.
I really like that. Like again, Gal Gadot's fine, but like it's just cool that like the Justice League sometimes they do stuff together and it's like cool.
I like that too. I'm really into that. Like, you know, hey, what about Superman? Oh, he's busy. Oh, what about Wonder Woman? Oh, I can't get a hold of her, so we got you. I like that, and I'm glad. I like Ben Affleck's voice to talk about that. I don't like Wonder Woman's cameo for some reason. Something about the way it's filmed doesn't work for me, and I can't quite pinpoint what that is. I think it's because it's filmed too similarly to Shazam Fury of the Gods cameo of Wonder
Woman. They probably did them back to back on the same day.
And I don't like that one either. So like something about the way it's filmed just doesn't work for me, and I don't know what it is.
I think it does boil down to her just not being present enough in the film. It does like it feels like she would linger a little longer in the story, but I do like the comedy around it. I do like seeing her, and to Ryan's point, it is the kind of thing that makes me like kind of wish this was the movie. Wish this was a movie about Flash, kind of hanging out interspersedly with the different superheroes and just spending time in that and this DCEU world rather than doing the big multiversal story where, frankly, with the way that it all turns out, it feels like they're just slapping out IP to get us to go like, yay, and like we recognize get the thing rather than like having any meaning behind it. Again, like not choosing to commit to transitioning and making it clear that we are moving certain characters into this new world and here's how it's happening because they haven't made those decisions. So they just didn't, or committing to saying a farewell to the age that this has been, leaves it in this nebulous place where like so much of it lacks meaning.
Yes,
even as it's happening.
100%. As much as I do like the nonsense George Clooney ending, when the movie like you know like the final act ends and like we're brought back to like, oh, I'm just back in my new universe. I'm back in my old universe again. Like, and it's like so nonchalant. Like remember the end of Flashpoint. And I didn't need them to do this exact thing, but like the Thomas Wayne moment where it's like a beautiful, like this is the new universe, but it's the old characters and blah, blah, blah. It's like a nice, like there was none of that. It was like, there was no setting up or anything. Again, it was like, we shot this yesterday. We're not really thinking about what the actual ending of the movie is. It's just funny. And I'm like, that is a bummer. As much as I like it, like, I don't know the future of anything.
I hate the tooth bit. I hate the tooth bit coming back around, and I hate it when it happens the first time. You correctly pointed out that it's like, it's that vomit joke from It Chapter 2
It's literally
again.
the same joke where something flies into someone's mouth and a song plays. The exact same thing.
Oh, I saw that in Evil Dead. No, it was an eye. It was better.
Yeah.
The Ryan mentioned humor. I do actually think a lot of this movie is very funny. The moment that really killed me though was when he brings Iris up to the apartment. He doesn't have any beers, so he phases through the door, and he comes back, and he just, as she's talking, just opens the beer and explodes all over him.
Yes.
Killed me. I thought that was so funny.
Or even like when she comes in and he like taps the wall, and the thing just comes up and all the trash comes out. He's like, "You want a drink?"
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought that was funny.
Really interesting, not at all mentioned, not really, interpretation of how to get the yellow lightning. It only happens when he's in the suit.
Oh, he's like channeling it.
So his suit creates the yellow lightning. We still have the blue lightning that they established in the Snyder one. We were kind of wondering what the transition was going to be there. And like midway through the film, I caught on like, oh, if he's not in the suit, it's blue. And if he's in the suit, it's yellow.
Yeah.
It's cool.
Yeah, I clocked that too. I thought that was interesting.
I do think that there's good comedy bits. For as much as like young Barry sometimes gets a little too for me, I do really like the bit where he's like, I got powers, I'll do whatever I want. Run through the street, light fire, steal pizza from steal pizza from Jamie Lannister.
Ben, did you catch that Jamie Lannister's in a movie for 5
I did not catch it. That was Jamie Lannister.
Yeah.
I was just thought it was just some poor random schmuck who was about to eat a pizza. He's like, "Where'd my pizza go?"
And like the naked.
He's also he's the guy who Ezra Miller steals his hot dog in the future afterwards.
Yeah. And like the naked Barry jokes, I think are funny with like the having to come back and then phasing through the floor, having to come back again. Naked.
Oh, the phasing stuff.
Look, that's funny. Yeah. It's funny.
Yeah.
It just also feels like, what is this movie about?
Yeah.
Again, like we're here for a while, and I feel like there's actual like stuff we're supposed to be going through.
We would be talking about who the villain of the movie is. It's not really Zod. It's Reverse Savitar.
Well, like it's officially because I saw this toy months ago. Yeah. It's Dark Flash.
It's Dark Flash. Yeah. It's Reverse Zoom, Reverse Flash, Savitar. It's all of them just put together. I wish. Yeah.
Which is a cool idea.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think it's a cool idea. I just don't think it's executed.
I love the idea. I'm all about like you become your worst enemy. Like I'm all about that. But yeah, like I think there's no time set up to it. We see Dark Flash for 5 seconds at the beginning of the movie. He doesn't show up again until like the very end. I'm like, I needed more.
Barry doesn't even act like he saw that dude.
He's like,
like for a while, he doesn't bring it up or think about it or anything.
Yeah, like I definitely didn't see a dark monster in the
honestly, when I saw him run through, I'm like, that's not Black Racer. He doesn't have skis.
Sure, I also for a second, yeah.
I mean, I think it's an interesting idea, but like you guys, it's undercooked. It's not utilized to its full potential because I do conceptually like the idea. It just doesn't work within the context of the film.
Okay. Real quick, I'm going to bring up a negative, but I'm also going to bring up a big positive. So the bit where young Barry moves old Barry without his powers, and then he throws up. He's like, what did you do? I'm like, did we establish somewhere that he wasn't supposed to touch him? Because he's acting like that's a line that happened earlier in the film where young Barry's like, yeah, but I only moved you just a little. And I'm like, I don't remember this coming up at all. Of like some discussion point of this being a concern because like, I'm sure that existed and they got rid of it.
It's in BVS or Justice League. There's a scene where he talks about he has to hold their head or else you'll vomit or something or don't touch me or something. It's from another, but it is a one-line thing from another movie that I can't even remember.
Sure.
So
yeah. So,
but I don't think that's this. That's Whiplash. He's protecting Whiplash in that sequence.
But they made like a whole bit out of it to the point where like it made him vomit grotesquely, which I didn't need.
Sure.
But like the fact that it even came up, like the way that he's reacting, he's like, "What did you do?" And he's like, "Oh, I moved you, but I only moved you a little bit." And I'm like, "Was it discussed earlier to not do that?" I
think Andy Muschietti wanted some more vomit in this movie.
That being said, outside of that, the entire go rescue Kara scene is probably one of my favorite stretches of the film.
Oh yeah,
I think that entire sequence is very well done.
Absolutely,
I like what the Barrys are doing. I love what Keaton's Batman is doing. I love the decision to save Kara, the way they do it. I love the effects on seeing her all grayed out when she gets in the sun.
Oh my God, her hand like literally grows in size with the sun.
Even though there is clunky CGI here, I still like this action sequence beat.
Yeah.
I really enjoy it. I think that's the most strong point of the movie.
So
you definitely.
Sorry, Ben. Go ahead.
No, I was gonna say with Kara, and when they bust her out of the black site, you definitely get that scene from, or you get the vibes of that scene from Flashpoint, the comic book, where you see a thin, decrepit Kal-El. But of course, this time it's Supergirl. You see, of course, the Supergirl's costume, and the second she gets in the sun, I do love how they do like the suit that the Kryptonians get their powers from sunlight. Put them in the sun, they grow, they feel a whole lot better. I do like that scene. I do like how decrepit Kara looked while she was in there and bathed in red sunlight by the looks of it.
Mm-hmm.
So Sparkz mentioned the vomiting, and I do want to mention one thing about that, and only that, and we don't need to linger on it. And so in the comics, when Barry picks people up, the Speed Force protects the person he's interacting with, so something like that doesn't happen.
Mm.
And I don't appreciate that they took that out of the movie, honestly, because I think that's just there because, as Ryan said, Andy Muschietti wanted another throw-up sequence, and
yeah,
I certainly didn't.
That goes back to like my big concern about Muschietti doing anything that isn't horror, frankly, but doing anything in the DC future is tonal imbalance has been a consistent problem with his projects post-it Chapter 1. Mm-hmm. Like, it's just like there can be funny bits, but then like some other things will just really not work. The turn from funny to dramatic can be so jarring. Mm-hmm. I told Ryan a specific example when we were walking out of the movie was that like I couldn't get it out of my head of like the moment when Kara finds out that Zod killed baby Kal-El and she's screaming no, and it's this big dramatic moment, and then Batman's jet comes swooping in and it goes dun 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 dun, and I'm like, wow, all right, really undercut what I'm supposed to be feeling in that moment about
no
the death
lingering.
of Kal-El. Like we're just
yeah, that is such a moment of like, yeah, and we like the infant did not survive.
Yeah.
So that reminds me of a point that I look. I'm used to blockbuster music not being good, and I'm glad that they use the Batman '89 theme as often as they do. But the soundtrack sucks,
and I agree.
The soundtrack sucks.
Yes. Okay. So I think it's always a problem. I think when these superhero films don't give their heroes themes, I think that's a bummer. I think it's a trend that's really sucked, but it particularly sucks when you are so heavily using a well-known strong theme for Batman and the Flash has none.
Yeah.
And honestly, there's a good one out there. Like, it's in the Justice League film. Like, it's in Zack Snyder's Justice League. It's also in Elfman's score for Justice League. Like, both have good ideas of a Flash theme that could have been utilized for this film.
And Wonder Woman's theme plays when we see Wonder Woman, and she's got a really iconic theme at this point. One that I really like.
That's almost a meme with Warner Brothers, I swear, because like it's every time she shows up, they do the
yeah.
It's pretty sick.
And I'm like, all right, I guess sure.
Man, when she shows up in Shazam, just wild. Okay, anyway.
I didn't know you'd watch that one yet.
I watched it when it dropped on HBO Max.
Gotcha.
It's even better when it's Jimon Hunsu.
I love that.
It's pretty funny.
It makes it worth it for that.
Yeah,
that's pretty funny. There's not to berate on the CGI too much, but I do want to mention that when in the scenes when we see Barry and Barry and they're in their suits, one of them has a CGI mouth that looks like it's rear projected on a Disneyland attraction, and that was very distracting.
I don't understand because I said it to you, like The Social Network, the Facebook movie came out a decade ago, and that is the Winklevoss twins, and that is a that's a big budget like drama, but that is not a superhero movie. 10 years later, why are there just some scenes when there's two Barrys and one of them has like the worst CGI face of all time in the background? Like, well, why is there so much CGI in this movie that does not need to be there? Like, I know it's super money, but
where the movie clearly had time because it's been in production for decades. Where did the money go?
Embezzlement.
I will say on that note, like I understand the logic and idea of young Barry needing to use a Batman suit to make a retrofitted like Flash costume out of it.
Yeah.
I get it. When they constructed that, they did not think about how goofy Ezra Miller's face looks inside that suit sometimes. And like inside that cowl, because there's a bit where they're playing something very dramatic or scared, or because like something's happening to Kara, I think, and like I got so distracted about how they didn't look right in the cowl and they look goofy as hell.
See, I think the intent was for him to look goofy, but that just undercuts anytime there's supposed to be drama.
Right.
Like I think that's on purpose, but like anytime there's supposed to be drama, he looks like a goofball.
Right.
Yeah, I was going to say something about that suit because he.
Thick suit.
It is a thick suit. Oh, I don't. This is something that the Flash TV show started doing a lot in later seasons when I didn't watch personally. I'm not crazy about Flash lightning powers. It's not for me. But because like, I think something that's really cool is that Flash makes a tornado and then like punches down on the ground and the tornado moves. That's like Flash. That I was like, yeah, that's a move from the comics. I'm into that. And then everything else is like lightning, is like Palpatine lightning. I'm like, can we be a little bit more imaginative here?
In defense of the show, Barry Allen almost always still does the wind up throw lightning bolt.
That's a dope.
Oh, it was not a slight on the show. It was just as an example because I know the show does use lightning abilities. Like I'm sure it didn't happen a lot, but it's the the meme of the lightsabers, things like that. I get that it happens in other mediums. As a personal preference, I prefer you to do something more like like the first episode of the Flash TV series when he like suffocates Weather Wizard. Like I wanted some more like hey, what can we do with the speed? That's not just lightning. I wanted some more imagination in the powers.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, I get that.
All right.
We need to talk about
the elephant in the room.
All the worst part of the movie. Where
let's do it.
If this part wasn't in the movie, I'd probably be a little more positive, but like it's truly heinous. Considering, Ben, who is that Golden Age Flash that we see on the screen? Do you know who
I have no idea. As
That's
far as
nobody else does either.
Unless
I know it's supposed to be Jay Garrick, but I don't know who the actor is.
Real quickly, Sparkz, you said something. What'd you say?
Not relevant.
Okay,
right now. It's fine.
So that Jay Garrick, no one knows who it is. It does look like Teddy Sears. It's not him.
Teddy Sears himself.
I have the same quote. It's not him.
Which wouldn't make sense anyway, because he was never Jay Garrick.
And I've heard reports saying that it's a de-aged John Wesley Shipp. It's not. No one knows who this actor is. Here's the thing that's confusing to me more than really anything, more than who that character is. Why does George Reeve have a Flash that looks like he's doing the same thing as Barry Allen at the moment?
I was actually really curious about that. I was like, part of me when I first saw that, I was like, oh hey, it was like cool. It's like archive photo of George Reeves. We're doing a multiverse thing, but then I was like, so there's Jay Garrick, but what's Jay doing? He's doing the same thing, but why? He never did this.
Archive footage of George Reeves would be wonderful.
That wasn't.
No, this is all CG.
It's AI, my friend.
Oh yeah.
I think it purely comes down to some of the people making this movie don't care and are stupid, and they thought Golden Age Superman, Golden Age Flash. What does he look like? Bingo.
White guy.
So I want to talk. So because we're talking about the cameos, I need to get something off my chest, which is in a better movie, seeing Helen Slater and Christopher Reeve together on screen would actually be kind of cool because they never did. They never shared the screen together in those first two movies.
Yeah.
And so that conceptually is kind of cool.
Yeah.
Conceptually, Nick Cage as Superman fighting a spider, kind of cool. Honestly, I still kind of like that like circle. I think that's kind of cool. In a better movie, I think these are cool. I think these are just kind of cool, but it's not a better movie. And the CGI doesn't look good. It doesn't sell it at all.
Yeah.
So honestly, here's my bigger problem. I don't understand why we have to bring actors back from the dead with CGI for them to just look somewhere. They serve no purpose in the film, which means they didn't need to be there.
Yeah.
So I don't understand why we're even doing it.
Okay. Yeah. So I'm with you, Brandon. I think conceptually the idea of the multiverse, all of the different multiverse characters we know, looking at Barry Allen as he is the one saving the universe. I think that's an awesome idea. But the thing is, we don't see the destruction of every other universe happening. We just see Christopher Reeve land on the planet and go, "That's Barry Allen, all right." If we saw that the multiverse was being destroyed and Barry saving it, and like this is the final moments of our lives unless you save us, Barry, like that makes sense. That is like actually captivating. We're like, okay, it's up to not our Barry Allen, it's up to this Barry Allen. But there's none of that. There's no context. They just show up.
It's the more shallow and direct version of what they're doing with Keaton's Batman, which is just Thing.
Yeah,
hear Thing. Look at Thing.
See, it's the Flash one that really gets me because like who is looking at that going, I know that guy? Nobody is.
And the Cage thing, as much as I myself, as someone who knows what that's referencing, thinks that's kind of cool, like no one else does.
No,
who's that for?
Right, it's for us, literally.
So
just us.
This is a great question, and I think it's an important. Like we got a whole lot to talk about around these. It's about the cameos that are here. It's about the cameos that aren't here too.
Yep.
And Muschietti is out there saying like, Grant Gustin was originally going to be in it, but there just wasn't room.
There's
for
no
him.
room.
And I'm like, boy, he could have been the Jay Garrick in the Golden Age one for, just it wouldn't have mattered. Like just to see him would have been cool. But like there is no excuse. Grant Gustin should have been, if you're going to do cameos, Grant Gustin should have been in this movie. It doesn't make sense to not have him in even a brief moment of like being a Barry in another universe and seeing things.
Ezra Miller was in the show. Of every character, the Flash should be in the Flash movie. That's it.
Yeah. But here's my other point is that like they'll argue that like these cameos are for the fans or to make the fans happy and that kind of thing. And I'm like, the fans watched Crisis on Infinite Earths. Honestly, the fans of the Flash didn't wait around just for this movie. They were watching the show.
That's true.
Even if they didn't watch the whole show, they were watching the show. And they watched Crisis on Infinite Earths. And they watched a bunch of cameo crossovers there. And if they didn't watch it when it aired, they watched it on YouTube. Like this is not something where like fans of these characters have ignored the television aspect. And it's very, very stupid for the movies to act like the TV shows don't exist.
Yeah.
And so this is something where like, man, I kind of wish Walter Hamada were still around for this because I don't think this would have happened under Hamada's watch. I think Hamada would have pushed the TV properties into this.
Yeah.
Because that was part of the vision.
Now, one of the things also with like all those cameos, as much as I love Superman, why were all the world's Superman?
Exactly. No,
that's a great question. See, it serves no point to the story.
Yeah.
Like Linda Carter, Wonder Woman,
Brandon
Routh,
considered.
Superman.
So interestingly, well, Christopher Reeve Superman does exist, right? He's Brandon Routh. So Linda Carter was considered, and we do see Adam West, and that's CGI and using archive footage. We don't actually go into his world. We see him swirling around,
which is the one cameo I really like. I wish more of them had been like that, where we don't really go there. We hear audio from old stuff.
Absolutely.
You could have done the same thing with Christopher Reeve and I would have been way happier with it. If it was like in the peripheral and I'm like, that's Christopher Reeve. I know that voice. I hear the music. Cool. That's his world. Pass on. Show me something else.
Yep.
Yeah. I don't think we needed to. I don't think anything in the movie justifies going into those worlds. And Ben's like, why are they all Superman? And it goes back to like, why? I like the Nicolas Cage thing because I like what it references, but it's so weird because it doesn't make any sense.
It really doesn't. And
literally,
again, like,
go ahead. Literally, like Brandon, I watched a documentary and I'm sitting there watching this. Like other people, I could like hear murmurs of people's like, why is this Nick Cage? And I'm sitting there.
Yeah, he's fighting a giant spider, and I'm like, yeah, that's funny because that dude finally got his giant spider.
Yeah, he got his giant effing spider. And I'm sitting there going, this is like one of the deepest cuts that a percent of a percent of a percent of people are going to realize.
Yeah.
Honestly, that Nicolas Cage should have just been Michael Keaton's Superman. That was the original intention with Superman Lives anyway.
Yeah.
And again, why is Nick Cage? Why is it CG? You know, Nick Cage would have done it. You know,
he did do it. That is him. He did film that cameo. They de-aged him.
It's just bad.
It just looks awful.
Yeah.
Just
Helen Slater also filmed her.
No way, dude.
And they de-aged her.
Look, I believe you, but I don't believe.
It looks like trash. I
can't believe that. Again, like,
I've seen better.
You were so right. Like, what is the point? Like, again, like my idea of like they're watching the universe like be saved. I think that's the intent. But they just spheres show up and it's just Christopher Reeve is there.
And we see, and like the idea, the spheres showing up is also really weird because it's like, oh, this act is destroying the multiverse. But it's not Barry's fault because they've already established that younger Barry is just a fundamentally different character. So it's actually not Barry Allen that's destroying the universe. It's Dark Flash. And we do see like what Christopher Reeve and Helen Slater are looking at is Nicolas Cage's Superman universe colliding into each other. And like, I don't get that, because it's like, we just fundamentally don't need this happening. It doesn't need to be this large scale for some reason. It just feels so hollow, because it's just, multiverse, so let's just throw these guys in, but the story doesn't actually need them at all.
No, not at all. Not. It could have just been Barry running on that treadmill, just like I gotta save the world.
We just had. Sorry,
Sorry.
I just had a thought. We just had a very large multiversal film that referenced so many other things, but it referenced them the right way, and it did it tastefully, and it also impacted the story.
Spider-Man.
Exactly.
Ben,
There are better multiverse movies.
There's so many.
There are many better multiverse movies.
Oh, yeah.
But yes, Across the Spider-Verse did just come out.
Yeah, but I'm saying that because we were talking about how, like, I actually agreed the using the archive footage of Adam West did, like, oh yeah, Adam, like, we remember Adam West, but it wasn't like doing the big CGI thing. And I also like trying not to compare this to Spider-Verse, but using not only all the different Peter Parkers seeing their uncles die, you have Andrew Garfield, Tobey Maguire, you have the animated films, you have all this other different stuff. And I'm just sitting there going, DC is just they have their heads so far up their ass. They get like, we know how to do it. And like, you obviously don't.
Well, this is the thing, is like, you don't have to go very far. Like, I've watched the clip. I'm not a big fan of the show, but I've watched the clip from Titans when it was ending and Beast Boy going through the multiverse. And that was done more thoughtfully than this was.
That's actually referencing Animal Man, and Grant Morrison shows up.
And Crisis on Infinite Earths, like we've talked about before, really did this well, where they blended with the television and the films in a way of, like, deeply acknowledging that all these things are connected and exist and they're all at risk. And then you get here and this feels completely like the most plain level hollow, like, what's going to make people like cheer. But it's so misguided, and it's not for the current fans of these properties. It's not thinking about like fans of the Flash at all, because like, even if you're not going to have Grant Gustin, John Wesley Shipp should have been there. Like, both of them should have been there, frankly. Like, it doesn't make sense to try and pretend like the portrayals of these characters before. Like, I don't know why you have this reverence for George Reeves and Linda Carter playing these characters on television, but don't have it for the characters who played the actors who played the Flash.
Also, he was in the show.
Yes,
this movie's Flash showed up on that show.
Yeah. So like, it's so backwards in its thinking, and I just don't understand how that's the point where you end up and completely ignore these things to this degree, and then do this grotesque AI recreation of dead people. Like, I can't get past it. Specifically for George Reeves, it makes me really uncomfortable knowing that he committed suicide, feeling like Superman had kind of ruined his life to an extent. Yeah, and that they're putting him in this movie as Superman again on the anniversary of his death. Came out the day he died.
Yeah, that's not. I mean, that wasn't intentional, but
maybe not. But it's pretty damn tone deaf
again, and it's just like, I don't.
There's a difference between like honoring and resurrecting for clout or money, and like it's on the bad side.
Oh, I told you this. You know what I thought after I heard all these CGI people are in the movie, because I did get spoiled for some of them. I thought that they were all showing up in the final battle with Zod, and Adam West Batman and Nicolas Cage Superman were flying and fighting people, and I thought that's what the ending was, and that was going to be considerably worse. So like, the fact that it is like, quote unquote, a little more tame doesn't make me feel any better, but there's a considerably worse version of this movie out there.
The thing that's so baffling to me is that, like, if you want to do cameos, certainly the people who are alive would be better served, because as Sparkz has been talking about very succinctly, like, this is a Flash movie. You should celebrate the Flash's legacy, and part of that legacy is John Wesley Shipp and Grant Gustin. Grant Gustin, whose show premiered the day after Ezra Miller was cast as the Flash. Like, this is, and did it throughout the entire production of this movie. Yeah. Like that instead of Christopher Reeve and Helen Slater and George Reeves, like, we should be seeing their universes. It is their universes that matter. Those
Yeah.
are the universes that Flash fans would be invested in.
And here's the big bummer, and I already
Also, they're alive.
yeah
Key, crucial ingredient. They're alive.
absolutely the sad and the sad thing and like the real thing about this is like those TV people aren't famous to casual people. Our parents know who Christopher Reeve is, right? Like, even if they don't watch Superman, like, people know through association Superman, Christopher Reeve, right? Like, he is the most famous Superman. And like, listen, we are all nerds. Of course, we want like the people who all the Superman, but like to the Casey casuals, like that Flash show might not even exist. You know what I mean? Like, so like getting a nobody Flash for your Golden Age Flash, to them, it's like, oh look, that's an actor probably.
Here's my 2 counterpoints to that, which is that is a admittedly older generation, and I do think the newer generation is at least passively aware of the newer actors playing the roles.
Mm-hmm.
And if this is for the fans, as the Nicolas Cage cameo,
who are 40-year-old men, 40-year-old men,
sure, certainly suggests, but like, it's the people who are invested in that culture and like are aware of these things, then still catering down, like, I get you, like the smaller known names, that kind of thing, but like, there's no reason that Christopher Reeve stuff couldn't have been handled the same way that Adam West was, and when we actually are focusing on characters that can be these Flash characters.
No, I agree with you.
Yeah,
I agree with you. I'm saying I don't think the studios feel as good as he is. I just don't think Andy Muschietti is like, nah, it's a TV Flash. This is the movie.
I think that's the problem. I think
yeah.
that's the problem. I think Andy Muschietti had too much hand on the wheel on the cameo stuff. He's been pretty open about having full reign of it.
Yeah.
And I think he clearly had too much of it because you needed someone who's more aware of what's going on in all of the DC properties to have taken a stronger take on that, like Walter Hamada would have.
Yeah.
Frankly. Or Jim Lee, who was pushing for like all the universes to be addressed as connected.
Yeah,
like,
that's true.
There's just no reason for this callousness.
That's true.
Yeah. My next thing I'm going to say is purely a statement and not a criticism of the film or a positive of the film. It is just Ezra Miller is now the 3rd Justice League member to just be in Man of Steel that we didn't see prior.
Oh yeah.
Because
that was definitely them. Like, we want to do a Spider-Man moment when we had a fake suit and stuff.
Because it's Ben Affleck. Because Ben Affleck is in Batman v Superman, and now we know that they were there.
I'll be honest with you. That scene really works for me.
Yeah.
And it's because pretty much the entire idea of Ezra's Flash feeling like they need to stop Zod and rally the stuff to get together
stems from that.
It makes far more sense when it's like this traumatic part of their Flash's origin that they're afraid of.
Could you imagine you become the Flash and then the next day your world gets invaded?
Yeah.
Crazy.
It's so weird to set this film in a desert. Also, I know why, because they're boring, but like it's so weird because like you could have, because Zod, it's just weird because that's not how Man of Steel goes. I don't love Man of Steel. I don't even like Man of Steel, but like that's not how it goes.
Isn't the implication that it's supposed to be like the same location where Superman surrendered himself?
Yeah, I guess so.
But like Zod never showed up there.
No, he didn't.
So I think they've like picked that location but altered the events of how it worked.
It's just weird. The movie's
Where was
weird.
Martian Manhunter, huh?
What?
Where was Martian Manhunter? He was hanging around, wasn't
he? Lennox, right?
Yeah, wasn't he?
Harry Lennox?
Yeah.
Wait, what's the actor's name? Harry Lennox, right?
Oh no, I don't know anymore.
Is that his character? Because he's got a character name and an actor name that sounds very similar.
I think we're mixing the actor name and the character name together.
Oh, whatever. He's good. I like him.
Yeah.
Let's see. I don't know. I want to go back to Sasha Cale real quick.
Sure.
Because I really like her and I really like her scenes, and I think she handles the role she's given very well. I love her outfit. It's just when she was coming in so late in the film, I kind of figured this was going to be the case, and the fact that she is constantly destined to die just doesn't sit right with me.
It doesn't.
And it just as a concept, as a story beat, it just doesn't work for me. It doesn't sit well with me. And the fact that it's never resolved, it's just like, yep, guess that character is destined to just be dead all the time.
No, it
just
really sucks.
Really sucks. And I really like her. And I hope I know she's talked about whether or not she can come back as Supergirl. I hope that she does, because I want her to have another chance, because this is not a good showing for her and this character. And it sucks because she's one of the things I was mostly interested in. I'd rather her not be in the movie at all than what we've gotten here.
Yeah, because they do kill her, and it does seem a little more finite. Like, here's a taste. That's all you're getting. Yeah.
Oh. I will say, like, a large majority of it is that they feel like they are plot tools, both Keaton and Kale, more than they are characters through most of the script. Yeah. And that's a bummer.
Yeah. I don't know if I have anything else. Do we want to rate it then?
Ben, you got anything?
Not really.
All right.
Ben, why don't you give it a rating?
Well, when I first went into this review, I was thinking of 7. Now, after talking about it with you guys, it dropped down to a 6.5.
Sure.
I'm probably going to see it again. Fanny wants to see it. She wasn't able to go see it with me earlier today. But the more that I think about it, the more I talk about it with you guys, there's some glaring problems. I don't know if it was just when I first sat down, I was just like, oh, yeah, this movie's finally coming out after all the years of turmoil it's been through. I won't say it's a complete dumpster fire, but it does have issues.
Sparkz or Ryan?
I will also. I was riding the line so hard, like a 7, because a 7 I will rewatch again. But I don't think I'll ever rewatch The Flash again. But as I often do with movies that are less than a 7, I will rewatch some scenes on YouTube again. I will definitely be revisiting the microwave baby scene because I think it's just funny. And listen, honestly, I might want to watch the first half of this movie again one day. Who knows? But there aren't enough just pure slapstick fun comic movies like this, where it's pure wacky. And I really appreciated it. And then it just got we talked about it for the last hour. 6.5.
I also will echo the 6.5 rating. I think that there's some things that feel really good and are fun to see and fun to watch, and there's final performances here that I really like, and it's tough because I feel like it does get mired in just kind of the bullshit of not making a clear decision about what this movie was supposed to do.
Yep.
And what this movie was supposed to be for. And the one thing that we didn't really cover that I'll touch on is that I do think Ezra Miller does a very good job with the emotionality of the goodbye to his mom.
The mom. I love all the mom stuff. Honestly.
I wish more of the film felt like it earned that performance and that moment, but I don't think it quite got there.
Sure.
And it's hard when I think granted, there's a lot more time for him to have done this, but Grant Gustin's whole arc on the show of accepting the loss of his mom was done really, really well. People have been sharing the scenes, and I rewatched the moment when Barry accepts it and Barry reveals that he becomes this superhero without her around to her as she's dying. And it's just not comparable.
Yeah.
And it's so tough that I do think that this Flash just needed more foundation before attempting a story like this. Yeah. And there just wasn't room for it.
True.
Yeah. I will say my final thoughts. The Clooney, I know Mag said that at least it wasn't Val Kilmer. This ending is so unhinged, but but not in a way that I appreciate it like I did with Transformers: Rise of the Beast. This is I just don't understand the decision to put George Clooney at the end of this movie that was supposed to, that everyone was saying oh yeah, it's going to hard reset the DCEU and we're going to go forward. Clooney is in this and I don't understand, Clooney's not going to be your Batman. It just doesn't fundamentally compute as an idea for me. I just cannot get over it. And
I just want to live in a world where tomorrow on Monday it's announced that George Clooney is in Brave and the Bold, and everyone on the internet goes, "What?" Because that would be truly the most insane thing to happen in a comic movie in a long time.
I mean, this movie didn't do as well on opening weekend.
No,
so
it's true.
That's how you get butts in seats still.
It's
right?
true.
You tell them hey, we reveal that Clooney's Batman at the end of the movie.
Yeah.
If they wanted to make Clooney Alfred, I'd be.
I like Jeremy Irons being back again too.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
That was
Robin.
And something we didn't touch on, but the post-credit scene I actually really like, mostly because I really like Jason Momoa, and I really like him as Aquaman. I think that whole scene is my favorite scene in the movie, and it's wild that that's the post-credit scene, because like when he falls into the water, he's just like, "This is home.
I like
This
it
is
here.
my home."
Yeah. This is
we didn't talk about. It's one of the best jokes, which is when he tries to call for Arthur in the other world, and he calls his dad, and we get
Thomas,
and we get him. And
are you married to
like, is your wife the Queen of Atlantis? No,
nope. That's a good cameo.
Very good cameo. Very funny. I laughed very hard.
That was good.
Yeah. But I like the Aquaman cameo. I thought that was very funny. And I speaking of things I'd watch that again. Specifically that scene I'd watch again.
Sure.
They showed up in Peacemaker.
Yeah, and so my rating, I will echo, it's a 6.5. Honestly, it might be a 6. I don't want to be too harsh on it because I actually just think it's just kind of a fine film. So I'll go with a 6.5 for now.
It bums me out because like watching the movie, I'm like, oh no, come on. I was like, I was ready to like, the fight was great.
Like we're going down like the bat plane into the Zod ship.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, both deaths suck. I just don't feel anything for whatever.
No, yeah, it's true. Yeah.
All right, shall we get into our book club then?